Thank you. Yeah, you can start, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhu. Text 15.
Prabhuji, can you scroll down? Thank you.
Vidura said, O powerful sage, my lord, all my doubts about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, living entities, have now been removed by your convincing words. My mind is now perfectly entering into them. Text 16. O learned sage, your explanations are very good, as they should be. Disturbances to the conditioned soul have no other basis than the movement of the external energy of the Lord. Text 17. Both the lowest of fools and he who is transcendental to all intelligence enjoy happiness, whereas persons between them suffer the material pangs. Text 18. But my dear sir, I am obliged to you because now I can understand that this material manifestation is without substance. Although it appears real, I am confident that by serving your feet, it will be possible for me to give up the false idea. Text 19. By serving the feet of the spiritual master, one is enabled to develop transcendental ecstasy in the service of the personality of Godhead, who is unchangeable, enemy of the Madhu demon, and whose service vanquishes one's material distresses. Text 20. Persons whose austerity is meager can hardly obtain the service of the pure devotees who are progressing on the path back to the kingdom of Godhead, the Vaikunthas. Pure devotees engage 100% in glorifying the Supreme Lord, who is the Lord of demigods and the controller of all living entities. Text 21. After creating the total material energy, the Mahatattva, and thereby manifesting the gigantic universal form with senses and sense organs, the Supreme Lord entered within it. Text 22. The Purusha incarnation lying on the casual ocean is called the original Purusha in the material creations, and in his Virat form, in whom all the planets and their inhabitants live. He has many thousands of legs and hands. Text 23. O great Brahmana, you have told me that the gigantic Virat form and his senses, sense objects, and 10 kinds of life air exist with 3 kinds of life vigor. Now, if you will kindly explain to me the different powers of the specific divisions. Text 24. O my lord, I think that the process manifest in the forms of sons, grandsons, and family members has spread all over the universe in different varieties and species. Text 25. O land Brahmana, please describe how the leader of all the demigods, namely the Prajapati, Brahma, decided to establish the various Manus, the heads of the ages. Please describe the Manus also, and please describe the descendants of those Manus. Text 26. O son of Mitra, kindly describe how the planets are situated above the earth as well as underneath it. And also please mention their measurement as well as that of the earthly planets. Text 27. Also, please describe the living beings under different classifications. Shubhum, subhumans, humans, those born of embryo, those born of perspiration, those who are twice born birds, and the plants and vegetables. Kindly describe their generations and subdivisions also. Text 26, 28. Please also describe the incarnations of the material modes of nature, Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara. And please describe the incarnation of Supreme Personality Godhead and his magnanimous activities. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Venu Prabhuji, for reading today's verses. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, and thank you for joining today's class. I'll start with brief prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Subhadati Vandeham Shri Rupam वंदेहम श्री गुरु श्री युतपताकं श्री गुरुन् वैष्णवांश श्री रूपं सागरजातं रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजन सहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान् सागर रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान् सागर ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितं श्री कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधा नमोस्तुते दत्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी शुभानुसुते वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यो च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे राम राम। Today we are discussing from Canto 3, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chapter 7, verse number 15 to verse number 28. A bird's eye view of third canto at a glance. Meeting of Uddhava and Vidura was discussed from first chapter to fourth chapter. And the question was asked by Parikshit to Sukadeva about the Vidura Maitreya Samvada. And then, being insulted by Duryodhana, Vidura gives up his house, goes for pilgrimage, meets Uddhava, and inquires from him about Krishna and Yadus and the Gurus. Uddhava remembers Krishna's pastimes in and outside of Vrindavana and informs Vidura about the Yadus' disappearance. So Uddhava directs Vidura to Maitreya for enlightenment. Vidura meets Maitreya at Haridwar. So there are some set of questions that were asked by Vidura. Question 1, question 2, question 3 that we are going to cover till that were covered so far. And question 3, there are some set of 40 questions which will be asked by Vidura today. We will cover probably few of them as part of today's class. So the question 1 which was asked in the past classes was, Vidura asks Maitreya about Purusha avatars, Virat Roop, and Leela avatars, different planets and jivas. So he asked specifically from 5th chapter, verse 1 to verse 9, where the answer was given by the pastimes of Purusha avatars were discussed, and development of Virat Rupa, from which manifested the demigods, planets, living entities, and Varnas. And question 2 was asked from 25 to 26 after hearing. How can the Lord be connected with gunas? How is a pure soul engaged in his science? So that is what we are going to discuss today. And the questions will go on like that. And title of the chapter, Further Inquiries by Vidura. So verse number 15. So I will actually briefly go through, I'll touch upon few points from earlier verses of this chapter. So Vidura questions about Ishvara and Jivas as part of this chapter. And so Maitreya, he pleasingly asked questions to Maitreya, but at point Maitreya understood that he has some doubts after hearing related to Lord and creation and maintenance, destruction. What happens is Vidura got so many questions. So Vidura, being a devotee of the Lord, starts answering them one after another. So question 1 was, how can the Lord contact the modes which are material? That was asked as part of text number 2. If he is unchangeable, how can he do any activity which involves change or transformation? That was asked by Vidura. And then Prabhupada answers in the purport. He actually says, difference between Lord and living entity. Lord creates through his internal potency, whereas living entity is bewildered by such manifestation. Lord is master, and living entity is subjugated. Less intelligent think the Lord and the living entity are the same level, at the same level. So he and that was as we can understand, Lord is completely spiritual at all times, in spite of interacting with the material modes or potencies, which are of his own. He is a nirguna, means he does not have material qualities. He doesn't interact with material qualities at all. There were examples of a magician becoming a cow was given, where you cannot call magician as a cow, but similarly, but actually cow is also a magician at the same time. Similarly, Lord is interacting with material energy. In that sense, he is aloof at the same time. So Lord maintains his transcendence when he descends in this material world. The conclusion we can see from that answer to that question was, Lord is saguna by his internal potency and nirguna by not being in touch with the material energy. And we can see there was another question asked as part of text 3, where I have my own logic. This is how Vidura was thinking. If a boy, for my inquiry, this is my logic. If a boy is impelled to play with other boys, that is actually happening by his desire. But Lord is self-satisfied. How can you say that Lord acted playfully just for pastime's sake? So that was the intent of the question. And that was answered also later down by some of the analogies. And there is another question asked. Jiva is a pure spirit soul like Lord. How can he be illusion? How can he be influenced by Maya? So since Jiva is spiritual, the knowledge should not be lost. That was the point asked by Vidura. So then Prabhupada describes for these two answers as this is basically because of avidya potency. Jiva gets bewildered because of avidya potency, which covers the Jiva. So he repeats those conclusions as part of many purports. And so he also says, the Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also mentions about the same explanation of detailed explanation of questions 2 and 3. Jiva becomes affected by a place by this is analogy basically, just as a seed sown in a barren land does not grow. Similarly, Jiva also get influenced by material nature, though he is completely pure. The Jiva is influenced by time generally. And question 4 was asked actually, super soul is with Jiva as a Paramatma. How can he suffer in his presence? That was the 4th question. So this question was asked, I think, as part of text number 6. So Prabhupada gives analogy to explain this. A citizen is there, may suffer. How can he suffer in presence of king? This is another way of the logical understanding of that question. A reason Prabhupada explains is Jiva being qualitatively same as Lord cannot be covered by any signs in Lord's presence. One may say Jiva is covered by avidya potency, but super soul is there. Actually, this is a further explanation of question. The answer is given in analogies further down. So explanation given in further verses was Maya is a illusory energy, is part of Lord only. It is part of the Lord. Maya bewilders soul, but not the Lord. Why? Because analogy 1, there is a sun and which is and also light, sunlight. So sun is the cause of cloud, dark and darkness. When sun's absence, we have a darkness. So not sun's absence when it moves to the other side of the earth. So there is sun is also cause for the snowfall. Sun is the cause of darkness, sunshine, both at simultaneously. So when clouds appear, they affect the sunshine only, but not the sun. Similarly, Supreme Lord is the cause of Maya, and the cloud comes actually only covers the sun temporarily in specific area. Similarly, Maya can never cover the Supreme Lord, but only covers the Jivas. Similarly, in analogy to fire sparks were discussed. Supreme Lord compared to a big fire. Living entities are compared to sparks of a fire. So as long as living sparks are connected to the fire, they continue to produce heat. and they are illuminating. But when they enter a non-fiery atmosphere, they may lose their potency and they get extinguished also. Similarly, when Jiva disconnected with the Lord, he is overpowered by Maya. As long as he is in touch with the Supreme Lord, he is unaffected. And that was the essence. So there was another example brought up for another question. Can a beheaded person see himself? It is not a factual background, as it happens only in a dream. So the eyes are part of that beheaded head. How can that person see himself being cut off after cutting the head? It's not possible. So the teacher who actually threatens this very mischievous kids back in the olden days with this example, they actually, whatever the point the threatening they to rectify the mischievous of the kid, whatever he's speaking, it doesn't make any sense. But you know and this was actually compared to how our assumption that jiva is affected by the conditioning or sufferings is compared to this example, because it appears to be so, but actually jiva is unaffected by those difficulties, miseries. So Prabhupada says in further verses, more settled conditioned soul quivers, less conditioned soul quivers less, just like a moon reflection seen. Moon is always stable, it is fixed in position, but when we look at the water, reflection of the moon appears to be getting the quality of the water with a quivering nature, but moon itself never uh, quivers. So more or less, jivas will quiver. It all, more or less, everybody quivers to some extent, but depends on the conditioning. That's what Prabhupada explains. And verse 15, there is one more point actually. So there is a deep realizations of Vidura from verse 14 onwards. Vasudeva Anukampaya. So this is by the one who is receiving the kindness of Vasudeva, who is qualified to receive the kindness of Vasudeva. So that is what is going to reduce our material distress. So that is what discussed in verse text 14 yesterday. But how do we get access to the mercy of the Lord? Vasudeva Anukampaya, through mercy of pure devotees. That is what is Prabhupada described also in the purport. So text 15, sorry, that point was part of text 12. So text 13 and 14 are important verses as described yesterday by Krishnavindas Prabhu. So actually scrolling down to the text 15. Okay. So Vidura got answers for his questions. Now he is sharing his realizations with Maitreya. It's a very beautiful section, actually several verses from here onwards. So Vidura asks, "O powerful sage, my lord, all my doubts about the Supreme Lord of Supreme Personality of Godhead and living entities have been removed by your convincing words. My mind is now perfectly entering into them." So the purport, please mark this purport, verse 15. Purport is very important. We can read it. So you can have cleared my doubts about the Lord and living entity. Science of Supreme Lord is so subtle that even a greatest personality like Vidura has to ask questions. So it's not so easy to get a hangover this knowledge so easily, even for a personality like Vidura. He has to inquire doubts about eternal relationship of the Lord and living entity are created by mental speculators in different ways. The conclusive part is that Lord and Jiva relation is one of the predominator and predominated. Prabhupada says, conclusive understanding is Lord is predominated and Jiva is predominated. Lord is a master, Jiva is a servant. One may speculate so much, but this is the fact, Prabhupada says. The real knowledge is to come to this point, the process of revival of that relationship in the devotional service. In the verse 15, in the verse 16, verse 16 purport is also very important. O learned sage, your explanations are very good, as they should be. Disturbances to the conditioned soul has no other basis than the movement of external energy of the Lord. So Jiva under the influence of external energy is the cause of disturbances for the Jiva. So living entities unlawful desire, Prabhupada says, to create material, to become one with the Lord. Living entity is unlawful desire to become one with the Lord in every aspect is the root cause of the entire material manifestation. Prabhupada clarifies it very nicely. This is the root cause of material manifestation. This is why universe just came into existence, just because of desire of jivas. Otherwise, Lord doesn't need to create material universe. So Jiva is thinking that I want to become Lord. Falsely, Jiva attempts to become Lord. And also, when the attempts are frustrated, then he will come back to his senses, thinking that one has become thinking that actually one can become the Lord is actually, Prabhupada says, is the last snare of Maya. So earlier, this has a connection with Vidura's question. Vidura question in 3rd and 4th verses that Lord personally doesn't have any desire. If one doesn't have a desire, how can he not engage in any activity? So as part of that question, example is given with boys want to enjoy, want to engage in the play, but Lord is self-satisfied. No answer. Now the answer is actually given in this verse. Because living entity desire only, Lord is manifesting. Otherwise, he is self-satisfied. He need not create. That is the actual answer for that question. So text 17, both the lowest of the fools, who is transcendent to all intelligence, enjoy happiness. So both the categories. Whereas persons between them suffer the material pangs. This is a very interesting verse. Transcendentally intelligent are very happy. Fools are also happy, Prabhupada says. But those who are in middle stage, they are unhappy. So it's like Vidura mentioning in a sarcastic way, in one way, of glorifying the ignorant people. Prabhupada gives a very interesting purport, different qualities of ignorant people he details. They don't, first quality is they don't understand the material measures. They pass life merrily. They don't inquire about the miseries of the life. And the 4th one is they are almost on the level of animal. The animal that Prabhupada chooses here is hog. They are unaware. If you see a hog, they are unaware of material distress. Hog's life is actually characterized as degraded in its standard of life. It's happy though. The hog is extremely happy eating stool, but that's a degraded grade of life, and that entails living in a filthy place, sex at every opportune moment, laboring hard in struggle for existence. So, but we are analyzing this whole thing, not the hog. Hog doesn't know all this. Hog has no problem in leading this kind of life. It is extremely happy. So, right, these are unknown to the hog supposedly enjoying so-called life. So, such ignorant people are happy. So, sarcastically, Vidura is saying all this. Other people are happy. Who are they? The second category, Paramahamsas, who are self-realized and have so much spontaneous love for Krishna. So between these two categories of people, we have who are there are jivas who are suffering so much. So Prabhupada here suggests such people who are in between, They must inquire about the absolute truth. Atato Brahma Jignasa. So that is how Prabhupada explains in this verse. So text 18, I'm not talking about the purport, but the verse is important. You can probably refer to this verse at one point. But my dear sir, I'm obliged to you because now I can understand that this material manifestation is without substance. Although it appears real, I'm confident that by serving your feet, it will be possible for me to give up the false idea. Actually, we can read purport also because it talks about the important aspect of Guru. You see that here Vadri is mentioning, I learned from you. I have got conviction. Here Vidura is saying, but I have no realization. I have understood the material world is temporary jiva, as per your answers. And temporary jiva is suffering because of misidentification in the material world, with the material world. But I will realize this fact. Vidura is clearly telling, but I will realize this fact only by serving you. So service is the essence. Apart from our sadhana, as you know, in yesterday's rasa, one Maharaj who came, who actually was giving a class. In that class, he was saying it is very important that service is sadhana should lead to a service, and service should lead to a sadhana, better sadhana. So that's how he was connecting. So here Vidura is also saying the same thing. Serving a pure devotee or a supreme lord will give a realization of the fact that the material world is temporary. He gives the actual realization only by service. So whatever we have heard, that we'll realize only through service. So Vidura is proving this point in this verse. So Prabhupada is saying, suffering of conditioned souls are superficial and have no intrinsic value, like cutting off one's head in a dream. Although this statement is theoretically very true, it's very difficult for a neophyte or a common man to realize it practically. However, by serving the feet of great transcendentalists like Maitreya Muni, and by constantly associating with them, one is able to give up the false identification idea that Jiva suffers from the material pangs. So the knowledge that material world is an illusion. Material world, Jivas are an illusion. Jivas in material world are suffering. That remains on a theoretical level, but that becomes realization only by all this understanding will become complete realization only by service. That we are, everybody thinks that they are happy, actually, comfortable. So knowledge actually leads to realization. Knowledge directly may not lead to realization. This is the point made here, basically. Knowledge alone will not suffice. Vishnath Chakravarti Thakur translate in this way. Convinced that Jiva does not actually suffer loss of knowledge, but yet realizing it directly, I will destroy lack of this realization by serving your feet. He's revealing the heart of Vidura here. So Jiva is actually not losing knowledge. Pure spirit never loses knowledge, Prabhupada says. But because of material covering, it loses. Though not perceiving this fact, I heard it. My intelligence could understand it. But however, I do not perceive this fact. I will destroy this lack of realization by serving your feet. Basically, knowledge alone cannot give realization. So assimilation of certain details or information in Shastra or philosophy requires intelligence, definitely requires intelligence. With intelligence, one can grasp knowledge superficially, though, at surface level. He cannot understand, he can understand only to some level, but assimilation of essence comes through practice. That happens with the service of devotees. Practice only happens with the service of devotees. Yathamati yatashrutam, means assimilation is fastened by service. So this was the same sentence was quoted by Maitreya earlier. Yathamati yatashrutam. So text 19. By serving the feet of spiritual master, one is enabled to develop transcendental ecstasy in service of the personality of Godhead, who is unchangeable enemy of Madhu demon, and whose service vanquishes one's material distress. So here, if we analyze it, by serving the spiritual master, et sevaya, one will develop transcendental ecstasy for Krishna. That will vanquish material distress. Basically, directly serving Krishna is also not recommended. Uh, Through a medium of spiritual master is emphasized in this verse. Now here, Lord is addressed as Madhudvisha. Madhu is representing sufferings of pure devotee. So Lord will actually destroy sufferings of pure devotee. That's what uh, it means here. So Madhudvisha means enemy of sufferings of his devotees. That is the point here. Important to note is we have seen, and also we will see also in the discussion of Maitreya and Vidura, oftentimes Maitreya is acknowledging the greatness of Vidura. You see the etiquette. Maitreya, who is the speaker of this knowledge, is acknowledging the greatness of Vidura, who is a listener here. He is not thinking, he is listening from me, I am greater than him, like that. His mood is like this. You are so great, with oh dear Vidura. You are from a great lineage. Your inquiries are filled with Krishna consciousness. Your inquiries will help everybody else. Your inquiries will also help me also. So acknowledging position of Vidura. If you see how Vidura acknowledged position of Maitreya in his conversation earlier, you are a great devotee, he says. Hearing from you, dispel my doubts, he says. By serving you, I will realize the facts that you're telling me, he says this. So there is a mutual appreciation between both the parties. So appreciating each other contribution is so important in our Krishna conscious life. So here are so here are also plays an important role in the relishment of any Krishna Katha, not only the speaker. And in this verse, in the next verse actually, text 20, Vidura says, this kind of association is very rare, O Maitreya. This is also verse-wise, it is important. Not the purport also not, it's optional. So here, persons whose austerity is meager can hardly obtain the service of the pure devotees. Service of the pure devotees cannot be gained so easily. It is here it is compared that anybody who is having meager austerity in their account can never obtain. It's very difficult to obtain service of pure devotees. So service of pure devotees is going to help us progress in the path of going back to Godhead, Vaikunthas. Seva Vaikunta Vartmasu, service of the pure devotees, takes us to kingdom of Godhead, the Vaikunthas. Rishabhadeva says in 5th canto, Mahat Sevam Dwar Mahur Vimuktes. One can attain the path of liberation from material bondage only by rendering service to the highly advanced spiritual personalities. Durapahi Alpa Tapasa. But ones whose austerity is meager rarely obtain opportunity to the service to serve the devotees. One may be pure devotees, devotees in general. One may have access to Mahabharatam scripture and this some other great scriptures from bookstores or something. But opportunity to render service directly to a pure devotee is not given to one who has a meager austerity. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, it is not that austerity will enable one to access service to pure devotee. It is said in a conventional, it is only said in a conventional expression. Austerity is not actually the, it is not some punya, regular, punya, but it is actually spiritual punya. Service to devotees is attained by the mercy of devotees also. This is another important point. Though he is not qualified, sometimes devotees show the mercy, pure devotees, not just by austerity, or even if one doesn't have a sufficient austerity. If a devotee shows mercy on him, they can do the service to the devotee. So, provided the person is willing to take the service, that's the condition explained by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Even if one has no assets of favorable austerity, if he nevertheless engaged in serving Mahatmas, engaged in chanting a hearing, is sure to make progress on the path of back to Godhead, Prabhupada says. And in text 21, Vidura expresses gratitude, is summarizes previous chapters in verses 21 and 22, and from verse 22 onwards puts forward some more questions actually. So first question, 22. Among the 40 questions, we will cover a few questions today. First one is, Purusha incarnation lying on the causal ocean is called the original Purusha in the material, and that is one. And in material creations, he takes Virat form, in whom all the planets and their inhabitants live. He has many thousands of legs. So first line he explains about Purusha avatar. Second line he onwards he explains about Virat form. So this is actually not question; it's just a summary of previous explanations. So from verse 23, we have, and Maitreya earlier talks about 10 types of life airs and so on. And if you see, Vidura is clarifying Tadvibhutir. Actually, earlier Tadvibhutir was addressed, I think, it in part of one of the earlier verses. And only in verse 24, that it was clearly answered actually what he meant by Tadvibhutir. Actually, Tadvibhutir refers to I think this is basically about Prajapatis. So they are actually vibhutis of the Prajapatis are vibhutis of Krishna who take part in progenation. So that's what it means actually. Text 24, the question is how Lord actually Prajapatis are populating this world. Answer to this is Daksha and so on. Vidura's inquiries about how Brahma got created this planetary systems and so on. What are all he has created? Detailed things he was asking about. Text 25. Please describe how the leader of all the demigods, namely Prajapati Brahma, decided to establish various Manus. So this question is about Manus, the head of the ages. Please describe Manus also, and please describe the descendants of those Manus. 26. O son of Mitra, Maitreya, kindly describe how the planets are situated above the earth as well as underneath it. Also, please mention their measurement as well as that of earthly planets. This is answered as part of detailedly in Canto 5. And then text 27, he asks about different types of living beings. There are 4 types of living beings: Andaja, Udbhija, Swedaja, Jarayuja. So these are actually Andaja means one who takes birth from egg. Living entities take birth from earth, Udbhija. Swedaja means from perspiration. Jarayuja means from the womb. So even if you see the living entities who come out of earth, there are like plants, trees, and so on. And also it involves things like cockroaches. They also appear from earth. They are also part of Jarayuja. So in text 28, the last verse today, he asked questions about Guna avatars and Leela avatars. So he asked about specifically Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwar. Can you please describe detail about the Guna avatars and his Leela avatars and his magnanimous activities. So that is it for today, dear devotees. Thank you so much. If I made any mistake in today's class, please kindly forgive me. And we will offer obeisances to the devotees. Vanchakalpatarubhyasya kupasambhyo evadapatitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namah anantagori vaishnavandiki jai.
Thank
Thank,
you.
yeah, thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.